Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the FPL Wire. This is probably one of my favorite episodes of the season where I get to know about the promoted teams, the teams that are coming through. And this time it's a little bit of an extra special episode because Ivan, as most of you already know or should know if you're on the Wire, as well as if you're watching a Wire show, is a great friend of mine. We pretty much talk FPL every day for the best part of how long has it been, Ivan? Now, 2 years, 3 years?
It's pre-McKenna, so it's certainly been, I would say, 3 or 4.
3 or 4 years, yeah. So know him really well. He's an Ipswich Town fan, and this is something I think you must have mentally manifested in terms of coming on, talking about your own team, talking about McKenna for a long time. Ivan, how are you doing?
I'm good, really, actually. I mean, it's great to be on. This is 23 years in the making, so I'm really excited to be here.
Likewise. I'm so excited to have you. Genuinely am, and I know how much it means to you to talk about your team on a podcast like this. And there is a selfish bit of common interest as well because I am very interested in your manager. I do think if he continues on the trajectory that he's going on at the moment, some ways down the road he might come to my club as well. So really, there's double reason to be interested in this team, in this manager. But if you guys don't already know, Ivan, you can find him on Twitter at Royzer5. He's one of the best FPL minds that I know. I'm sure he's going to give you great Ipswich insight throughout the season. He talks great FPL as well. So do follow him. I'll put his links in the description below. So Ivan, man, how does it feel? What matters more this year? Ipswich or FPL?
Oh, you really need to ask. That is Ipswich. I'm sorry, very much Ipswich. I mean, this is just a crazy story, and you can say the word fairy tale, and we always use that in terms of football, but this is just insanity. For some context, so 2.5 years ago we were playing Forest Green Rovers. Forest Green Rovers are kicking off their season away to Aldershot this season. We're home to Liverpool. How did this happen? So yeah, I'm a bit excited.
Nice. How did this happen is exactly what we want to get into with Ivan. We plan to talk Ipswich. We plan to talk whether they're a team to target for FPL managers, what assets could be useful, because after the first two, Ipswich do have a decent run of fixtures. Post that, Ivan's been following the championship closely as well, so he's giving us some insight into Southampton and Leicester as well. And I thought, since he's been watching the championship, we'd get some Maresca insight as well, who's the Chelsea manager now. Before we get into that, just a quick plug on our sponsor. As you guys already know, we have been affiliated with Fantasy Football Scout for the best part of 5 years, ever since we've started podcasting. All the stats, all the data that you see on this podcast, you'll already see a lot of numbers and charts on this podcast. They're from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. And at the moment, they have a 40% discount going on. If you do want to become a member, click on the link in the description below. And if you become a member, make sure you click on the link in the description below because we're affiliates and it sort of helps us. Right. Ivan, before we get into things, how did this happen? What did McKenna do? I think it was a new ownership that decided to get him on board. What's the story there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, if you go back, say, 3 or 4 years and you said, what's more likely, in the next 5 years, you'll be in the Premier League, or in the next 5 years, you'll be in the National League and possibly just going bankrupt or whatever, I would clearly have taken the second one. It's been a death spiral. That's not being over dramatic as well, since we got relegated out of the Premier League last time. Essentially, that coincided with the loss of ITV Digital. We basically were about to go into administration. We had new owners called Marcus Evans, who essentially meant well, but I think his interest waned after 15, 20 years, essentially. And we progressively made a series of bad managerial decisions. I could say the words Roy Keane, Paul Jewell, Hurst. It just kept on going worse and worse. Mick McCarthy kept us afloat for a number of years. But in the true Mick McCarthy way, we forgot to play any style of football that the fans wanted to see. And then when the fans finally had enough, careful what you wish for, the players had forgotten how to play football. Essentially, it happens every time he manages anyone. And we ended up in League One. We ended up 11th in League One. We had just knocked out the cut by Barrow, and we'd hit rock bottom, as it were. And there was only one way we were going, essentially. I was thinking, well, in 5 years, I think we're probably going to be in the National League the way it's going. And that could have been where we are now. But what happened is we got acquired by a US consortium called Game Changer, and never has a name been so suited. The American consortium, and one of my American friends on Twitter said, "Oh, you got the good American owners." There's two types essentially. You can probably relate.
I can relate.
These are ones who previously had taken Phoenix Rising and got them promoted. They brought Didier Drogba in and did a lot of good work there. And basically, what they did, they changed the game. We already had a new manager at that point, Paul Cook, who he basically did a demolition job. He sold 17 or 18 players. No, sorry, he sold about 20, bought about 17 or 18. Old school manager. Good eye for some players, and a lot of those players we'll be talking about later on. An entirely new team, and he lost the first 8 matches, I think, or without a win in the first 8 matches. We were bottom, essentially. By Christmas, it picked up, but essentially they replaced him with Kieran McKenna. This young manager, he had never managed before. And I remember messaging you saying, this McKenna chap from Manchester United, do you know him? Anything about him? And what you fed back to me, well, he's highly regarded, he's progressive, he's a good communicator. There were stories in the press about some of the more high-profile Manchester United players being unhappy with his coaching style. The fact that there are a lot of drills and getting people doing the same thing over and over again. I think we're talking about Paul Pogba here, and maybe that speaks more about Paul Pogba than anything else.
But there were a lot of good reports also, because
absolutely.
Yeah.
He was, by this time, he is assistant manager with Michael Carrick, with Ollie.
Yeah.
And he had worked his way through Spurs youth, head of under-18s. Jose brought him over to Manchester United, made him assistant manager, etc. So there's a lovely link here as well, because obviously, as an Ipswich fan, we love Bobby Robson. There's a statue of Bobby Robson. Bobby Robson had Jose Mourinho as his assistant manager and translator. He then passed the chalice over to McKenna as well. So there's a lovely story going on there. But essentially, we ended up with a rookie manager called Kieran McKenna, who came in and basically said, okay, from day one, we're going to do everything the Premier League way. So we're going to eat like Premier League players. We're going to train like Premier League players. We're going to play a Premier League style. We're going to get the ground up, or at least the pitch up to Premier League standard. We're going to bring analytics in. We're going to bring science in. We're going to do everything. All the words they use is processes, essentially, but absolutely everything is Premier League standard. If not standard, they're just going to do it the Premier League way. And he had about the first half of or the second half of a season to basically bed the team in. Didn't bring any players in, or barely any, and basically I think we still finished 11th. But the following season, once he had time to actually instill the fitness and the training, with a few additions, we basically just aced League One. We came second, and this is going to be parallels with the Championship. We only came second because there were 3 amazing teams, essentially, that ran away with it. And it was one of these things where the neutral fan would say, well, why can't we just promote all of them? Why does one of them not get promoted, as it will, or have to go into the playoffs? But we did really well. And that League One, we controlled matches. We got the highest number of clean sheets, the Golden Glove, but we also got the highest goal difference in England. We had plus 66 goal difference at the end of the season.
Nice.
So we were basically, I used to say, we're like Arsenal or Manchester City in terms of the way we play, the way we control, the way we score, the way we defend in League One.
Was it a defense first or a forward first mindset?
Absolutely. So in League One, it was a bit of both. In League One, it was very much control the matches. And it grew from control the matches to control and batter, as it were. So, yes. And we should have. We had a decent amount of money at that point, and we didn't spend discriminatingly. We brought a couple of key players in, essentially, who are in the team now, essentially, and we'll be talking about them. And we just controlled matches. And I mean, I remember the penultimate match we needed to win to guarantee promotion. Very nervous. Portman Road. We were 5-0 up after 30 minutes. Oh. And we did it in style, essentially. So, would you say Manchester City are an attack or defence first team?
It's a control team.
Absolutely. Completely controlled, completely bettered them. And what was interesting is we obviously moved into the Championship. And I think most fans would have said, I don't think we're going to get relegated. We're a really good team here. We're already playing like a Championship team. I think we'll probably finish about 14th. Maybe, if we're lucky, because anyone can beat anyone on the day in the Championship, we might be to scrape the playoffs. I think that's what most fans would have said. And here we are. And yeah, I mean, we lost 6 matches the entire season. And, if you look at everyone else, so the Leicesters and Leeds lost about 10, 11, 12, 13. Highest number of goals. Conceded a lot of goals as well. We can speak to that as well. But we won a lot of games, essentially, and drew the games that we maybe should have lost. And we finished second, 1 point behind Leicester. And again, we were competing with, this time, 3 really good teams. But these teams, they're arguably the strongest championship teams there's ever been in the championship, with parachute payments. I mean, Southampton, Leeds, and Leicester really probably shouldn't have got relegated the year before, or need to look at themselves for getting relegated. And most of those teams remained intact. I mean, Leicester had a wage bill that was more than AC Milan.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, we were I think we were 14th in the league of wages, maybe 16th, 14th, 15th, 16th, depending on who you read, in terms of wage bills. And wage bills, there's a strong correlation in the championship relating to where you finish.
Did McKenna adapt when he moved from?
Did, yeah, absolutely. And the wonderful thing about McKenna is he's going to tell you how we're going to play. So we played exactly the same formation, and we can talk about that a little bit later on. But in terms of the overall style, we're still attacking, we're still progressive. What we didn't do is control matches as much. I think we finished the season on 53% control possession. So you would look at that and think, well, that's not control. But what we did is we completely mixed up the way we work. So we do control the game, but then when we have the possession, we use that really, really effectively. We can go direct if we want to. So we move it from defense, playing out from the goalkeeper very effectively as well. So defense to midfield to attack very, very quickly. It doesn't need many passes.
So a lot of vertical football, quick vertical.
Absolutely, very vertical, very vertical. So it's just long pulls per game, 70. So it's not lump up and hit, but you're moving it through the team, ping, 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 and everyone's drilled so well. Everyone's super fit. Everyone knows where everyone else is going to be. And we create overloads on the pitch as well. So quite often we would overload the right, lots of intricate passing. We'd do the De Zerbi thing of the defender might pause for a second or look like they're hesitating. Goalkeeper might do the same. And all of a sudden, we've hit at left. Leif Davis, we'll talk about on the left, rampaging up the left, counter-attack, cut back, score. But that wasn't the only way we attacked as well, so we could really mix it up. So these stats, this screen here, you'd think, well, that's pretty mediocre. They're 7th, they're 9th. There's nothing much going on here. On the contrary, we react to what's going on, and we're able to do it all. So you can go into a match against Ipswich and go, okay, I know how he's going to set up. But it's actually very hard to actually play against, because you play one way, we'll change it. All within the same formation, all within the same drill. It's really, really clever.
Nice. I mean, and it's pretty much been the same core of the team for the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's incredible. So the team that basically ended the season, or the first team, as you would call it, is pretty much the team that we finished the League One, except we're playing with who at the time was our second string goalkeeper, because Walton was injured, although he then became the first because he was so good with his feet. And then a couple of loanees. So we had Amari Hutchinson, who we'll talk about, Sarmiento from Brighton, and we brought in on a free Twanzebe. And one of the key things that people don't realize is that apparently McKenna sat down with Mark Ashton just before, in the pre-season before the championship, and said, I want to spend the money on the pitch. So we actually spent far more money on the pitch than we did on players. So we brought in the hybrid pitch, the undersoil heating, etc. We brought it in really early so the players could train on it. Same with the training pitches as well. And it was absolutely, it's a beautiful pitch, and we were just so used to playing great football on it that Portman Road became an absolute fortress. So the actual team barely changed really compared to what you would expect, and it's the team that essentially just kept on going, kept on winning against all odds. Everyone thought they'd drop off, and boom.
Yeah, I can see the numbers here. Just one loss at home.
Absolutely.
That's insane.
Absolutely crazy.
Staggering record.
Absolutely crazy.
Let's break down Ipswich's style into attack and defense, and we'll talk about attack first. And what we'll do is, while we're citing and talking about that attack, we will get into FPL assets that might be of interest, because as everybody knows, Ipswich does have a good run at the start of the season, and they're very relevant in the first 10 game weeks, because game week 1 and 2 they play Liverpool at home and City away. Now, obviously, FPL players want to know what to expect from Ipswich in these two games. And then game week 3 onwards, they've got a great run of fixtures right up till game week 10. So there might be people that want to jump onto Ipswich assets as well. So, as I can see the numbers here, you guys were first in the championship for goals scored, first for shots, second for shots on target, fifth for attempts from set plays, 14th for attempts from counter attacks, and fourth for XG. So how would you describe Ipswich's attacking style? And then let's talk about some FPL players that might be of interest.
Yes, I mean, it is attacking. And our best football is always done attacking. I'm never comfortable when we're not attacking, essentially. And it's progressive. It's, as we've said, it's getting it forward very, very quickly. It's clinical as well. So the way we play, the formation is 4 at the back, and then it's 2 in the double pivot, 3 number 10s or attacking midfielders, essentially, and a lone forward. And what happens is Leif Davis, who we'll speak about a lot, basically although he's a left back, he's not even a wing back. He's also a left-sided playmaker, and he runs and runs and runs and joins the attack a lot of the time in transition. And even when not in transition, we create the transition ourselves, false transition. So if we're not actually attacking, we'll play it around a bit and then suddenly launch an attack. So it's like a counter attack. So we go essentially, he makes it 5 in attack, and quite often there's cutbacks, etc.
So a 3-5 in possession.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So obviously, the defense covers for that, and the midfield covers for that, but it's all about the attacking 4 plus Leif Davis, essentially. And one thing I should say is that you never know where the goals are going to come from, and obviously that has an impact in terms of FPL. The lone forward is actually there to cause problems more than anything else. So George Hurst does this fantastically for the older listeners like myself. So he's the son of David Hurst, a Sheffield Wednesday striker. And he had a reputation. He was highly regarded, but he'd been on multiple loans to multiple championship sides and never scored in the championship. He scored luckily within, I think, the first half of the first match for us. And he's an absolutely pivotal player, actually, for us. He may not score a massive number of goals. He was injured from, I think it was Boxing Day to about 3 games to go. So those stats there don't necessarily do him justice. But he's, as the lone forward, he's not necessarily there to be a poacher. He's there to actually rip the defence apart through his running, through his movement, through his physical activities. He can play back to goal. He can also break the line as well. He just causes chaos, and that allows the 3 attacking midfielders or number 10s to basically get in where they need to get. And there's a lot of fluidity there between there. So between
his ability to play with the ball and get others into play might be important as well.
Very much so.
So not a pure number 9.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, he does get in those positions, but so many of our goals come from, say, around the penalty spot or that kind of line, because you've got the 3 attacking midfielders finding space or cutbacks or whatever. Another key thing as well, especially in the last half an hour of games, but strategically, we do a very aggressive high press, and almost like a Gegen press in many ways, but it's not throughout the entire game. So a lot of our chances come from that high press, that hunting down, and then all of a sudden we're pouncing, and then we've got 4 or 5 people there, maybe cutting back to the edge of the area and scoring. It's a very effective system, very effective, and we get goals from a lot of different positions.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the numbers are right there in front of us. I mean, Chaplin got 13, Broadhead got 13, Hutchinson got 10, Hurst got 7, Moore got 7, Burns got 6. There's a very good spread of goals all over the pitch,
Absolutely.
which speaks probably about the unpredictability.
Absolutely. And if you do goals and assists, then there's several there, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19 goal contributions. I mean, Chaplin he's been our main goal scorer for the last 2 years. He got 13 there, but he got about, I think it was 24 the season before. What was interesting is because Hurst got injured and he's so key to the way we play, we replaced him with Kiefer Moore, who did a really great job for us under the circumstances. But we all know Kiefer Moore is not the most mobile or forwards.
Yeah. He's a pure number 9. He's like,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely, and or a target man, depending on how you want to play it. But he's not this player who's going to run around ripping everyone apart. And Chaplin suffered for that. So he's a really good player, but it was clear that he wasn't the same player if George Hurst wasn't causing chaos ahead of him. So that's going to be an interesting one. I suspect George Hurst will continue to play for that reason.
That's because Chaplin got more space because Hurst used to occupy defenders and move them and take them
Absolutely.
away and give place and space
It's
to
just
your
got a
number
little bit
10s.
of space.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what's remarkable as well, I mean, Connor Chaplin is 5'6". He's probably our primary threat from set pieces because of Leif Davis' delivery. The number of times he's headed it in, or there's been clever set plays, etc. He's a threat, and he's a quality player. And I really hope he does it in the Premier League.
Nice. I mean, I remember as soon as you guys got promoted, I was watching this video on YouTube, which was Ipswich's goals throughout the season. It's a 30-minute video. It's something I do with all the promoted teams, so just get an idea of how they're playing and everything. And I was
watch
like,
it every day.
yeah. I remember telling you everybody's talking about Hutchinson, but the first half of the season, it was all Chaplin in terms of who was getting in the positions, who was getting the goals. Is his stock not as high as it was probably a year or two ago? And why is that?
I wouldn't say his stock is not as high. I think there's just a question mark. So, he's small, he's diminutive, shall we say? How will that adapt to the Premier League? Also, as well, his output dropped when George Hurst wasn't in there. And towards the end of the season, there were two occasions where Omari Hutchinson played in his position, which is the central number 10. One because he was injured, I think. And Omari Hutchinson played an absolute blinder. He got 2 goals and an assist. And the other one was, I think it's the penultimate game of the season. Omari played at number 10, and Connor Chaplin didn't come on at all, which is like a real shock. Especially when we will discuss substitutions later on, because we do a lot of strategic substitutions. So there's a little question mark. What I would say is Chaplin's played probably the most minutes of pre-season so far. He's looked good. I think he'll still be there or thereabouts. Just enough to question whether he can do it.
Yeah.
But if time has told us anything over the last 2 years, just don't question us, because we'll find a way.
So tell us now, if anybody really wants to punt on an Ipswich attacker, which way should they be looking at?
So from an attacker, I mean, you mentioned Omari Hutchinson, and he's the one with superstar quality. He's the one who can generate something out of nothing. And I know you said, oh, well, you look at those stats, etc. He scored 10, got 5 assists. That's not as good as Chaplin. The key thing here is that Hutchinson was a sub for the first probably half of the season, or at least a third of the season. He did actually appear in, I think, all but 2 matches, largely as a sub. But when you look at Omari Hutchinson's stats, for instance, you're looking at the evolution of a player over a season, and his evolution has been extraordinary. So if you don't know, Omari Hutchinson, we got him on loan, 19-year-old kid. I think he had played 40 minutes of football for Chelsea, once against Manchester City and another match, just cameos. Looked good. He was most known as a 12-year-old for appearing in a YouTube video of freestyling football. It's great, by the way.
I want to check that out.
Freestyler. Yeah, I'll send you a link. It's really good. And he is amazing. But he's this Chelsea kid, and you're just thinking, oh, great, we'll use him off the bench, bit of flair if we need it. Relatively low expectations. And we did him, we used him in that effect, and he was very good, very tricksy, obviously great technical ability, but making the wrong decisions at the wrong time when it came to the final third, etc. And that improved. And then as that improved, he got more game time. And what he started to do was press like an absolute demon. And he said, Kieran McKenna is just a genius, because he's turned me into, in Kieran McKenna's words, possibly the best presser he's ever seen in his life. And this is this 19-year-old little kid from Chelsea who, maybe a future superstar. They don't do that, that they don't press. And he presses like an absolute demon. He started to get starts. You can use him anywhere across that front three, the 3 attacking midfield positions, including the central number 10. And he just got better and better. And in the last, say, 10, 15 games, in the last 9 games, he played pretty much every single minute, which in a McKenna team where we do a lot of substitutions, strategic substitutions, is unheard of, essentially. And he just plucked goals out of nowhere. We called him Omari Hutchinson because all the big goals were coming from him. Some incredible, spectacular goals. And you might say, is that repeatable? Because there's a lot of goals from outside the area. What I would say is, if you look at his stats in terms of his ball placement, I think he has the best ball placement out of anyone in the Championship.
So the talent ceiling is up there.
Absolutely, because those balls are going into the corner every single time. He's not taking pot shots. He knows what he's doing. It's the Salah effect, essentially, where he may miss some, but they're not going at the keeper. They are going in the right place. And he is that magic touch. He has
How do you?
assists. He has goals in his locker. He is a future star.
You're getting me excited. Yeah. How do you compare him to Morgan Rogers and somebody like 5 point Kamada? Those are the positions that are competing with Hutchinson. And in fact, I pitched the idea to Zoff and Pras when I was doing the draft video, where we have doubts over expected minutes about these slightly on the fringe squad players. Maybe going for a 5.5 million player who's a marquee in a team like Ipswich might be a better idea. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, those are all good players. And I would throw in, we can talk about Leicester later, but I would throw in Medavidi as well, and Fatawa as well. They're very good at 5.5, good wingers. So hard to say. I mean, his ceiling is up there with the very highest, I would suggest. Obviously, he's not played in the Premier League yet, but as we've seen, as you say, with Rodgers, as Adam Wharton, that needn't necessarily be a big deal, actually, if you're good enough.
Exactly.
And I know there were plenty of Chelsea players who were like, why don't we just give Amari a start rather than keep on buying these players? He's better than Mudrich. He's better than this. We shall see. But his ceiling is incredibly high because he's only just getting started. And he is our key man. And it was lovely. I mean, we fell in love with him and he fell in love with us. And I mentioned it before, but at the end of season award ceremony, it was Kieran McKenna's birthday. And they asked him, what do you want for your birthday from Mark Ashton? And the reply was Amari.
Nice.
And we bought him for 20 million, just like that. And why not? Why not? And it's a no-brainer because he could be, and bearing in mind McKenna makes everyone better. Every single player is working at a level far beyond what they thought they were capable of. 20 million is going to look like nothing if we ever do have to sell him.
Nice.
So obviously, watching brief, but he's one you could make a mockery of things.
Yeah, it's interesting because Gameweek 3 to 10 reads Fulham at home, Brighton away, Southampton away, Villa at home, West Ham away, Everton home. That's just a good run. I reckon Absolutely. He might be popular on Wildcard if he catches everybody's eye in the first
Absolutely.
3 or 4 weeks. All right.
Absolutely. I mean, he absolutely has the stuff. What I would say is he hasn't played any preseason minutes yet. It's very early days yet. We've been managing his minutes because he played a lot and he's got what's described as a minor niggle. Okay. But he's not played any minutes yet, but I'm not worried about that.
Is Hurst the first choice striker? What's the impact of Delap that you guys bought for?
It's a good question. So we bought Liam Delap from Manchester City. He was at loan at Hull. He got similar numbers in terms of goals and assists to George Hurst for Hull, and again had a long-term injury as well. But I do know that McKenna rates him very highly, and Man City rates him very highly as well, to the point where when we played Hull, we actually did a tactical change. We dropped our first choice centre back and changed him with George Edmondson purely to deal with Liam Delap. So Liam Delap, very high potential, can play in a very similar way to Hurst. I think he hasn't historically, but he's big, he's mobile, great with his feet, great shooter as well. He can play on the wing as well. So I can't see why he couldn't do the George Hurst thing. Okay. What I would say is one of our chief skills is that we're so drilled, and it's the fact that it's the same team that we're playing for 2 years. There's this psychic thing going on where everyone knows everyone else. I don't know whether we're going to make huge amounts of changes with new players from the off. I wouldn't be surprised if George Hurst starts the season. All
right, cool. So I think there's enough doubt there to avoid the 5.5 million striker spot from Ipswich, you reckon? Like you go
absolutely. And if you're really looking for a 5.5, I'd go with Armstrong from Southampton every day, goals and assists. I know he hasn't done it before in the Premier League and he got 2 the previous seasons, but I would be going with him. I think you're looking at the attacking midfielders, but even then, you need to be prepared for substitutions at 65 minutes.
Yeah.
Because one of the key things that McKenna does will start with a team, but he basically sees a match in 2 sections: the first 60 minutes and then the last 30 plus, essentially.
And there's a break after 20 minutes as well, you told me. I mean, this is fascinating, and our listeners need to know, Ivan.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, in terms of the transfers, what will happen is that he likes to swap a lot of the attackers round at about 65 minutes. They're usually pre-planned, or it seems that they're pre-planned. So it might be that you have 2 3 or even 4, or the attacking 4 being substituted around 65 minutes. So there's an X minutes thing there. But then the people who come on who are equally as good, and this is what he wants 6 people for those 3 attacking midfield positions. They come on and they play with insane intensity. They press super hard. And that's why we get so many late goals. It's not luck. It's actually a strategy. We tire the opposition down over the first 65 minutes. Then we bring on the cavalry, as it were, and they absolutely hammer the defense. They close them down. They do flying tackles into the defense, and we get so many late goals. It's lovely to watch. So X minutes isn't really a thing for the substitutes so much, because we got, I think it's 24, an insane number of goal contributions anyway from substitutes last season, and plenty of goals and assists from those who start as well. They're all going to get minutes, essentially. In terms of the 20-minute thing, that's funny as well, because there's a lot of in-game problem solving for Ipswich by McKenna, but also the players are given the freedom to problem solve as well. We tend to be not great in the first 20 minutes. We're finding our way around, and we concede. I mean, I showed you a stat earlier. It's ridiculous. I think it's 31% of our goals were conceded in the first 20 minutes. Some of them, some of it's variance, but a lot of it is because we're still feeling our way around. And what will often happen, not always, but often, you might get a Murray Hutchinson, suddenly feeling a bit of something in his leg, sits down on the centre spot. Physios come and look at him. Everyone else goes, there's a quick chat with McKenna. Oh, I'm all right again. He gets up, and all of a sudden, we're playing in a different way, and we've got it nailed. we've got their number, and that does happen. So there's a lot of in-game problem solving, and then at the 65-minute mark, basically a move to really high intensity, frightening football for the opposition. It's great.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the reason there's doubt in the striker spot with Hurst and Liam Delap being there, Hutchinson, you reckon because of his star quality is sure shot first choice, and
Absolutely
might see more minutes than Chaplin, who might fall privy to that 60-65-minute rotation, despite him being a better scorer. And I have Hutchinson's stats here. In the last 17 appearances, he had 8 goals and 3 assists. So that's 11 returns in 70. That's greater than a return, half a return a game. It's something you can't expect more from a 5.5 million asset.
Yeah, and that nails it. I mean, I think Chaplin could be a great pick. It's just that there's enough for us to say, hang on, it's a different game now. What's going on? I mean, he's done it every season, so why not do it again? And he's Ipswich through and through. He's a great character. He's vice captain, so he's going to get plenty of minutes. And I think it's more a matter of, is he going to get the space from cutbacks at the edge of the area to actually do what he does, because he is an excellent finisher in that position.
Is it more that Hutchinson is an inside forward or a winger? Because that's something like, does he hog the touchline too much?
He's everything. He's absolutely everything. So when he plays on the right, he is a winger, but he's a winger who does come in quite a lot. What usually happens is the left-hand attacking midfielder is the inside forward, because you've got Leif Davis rampaging all the way up the left. The right tends to stay out more, but we're not talking about someone who completely hogs the touchline and then gets a speculative cross in. He'll do cutbacks a lot. He does cut in on his left, and sometimes shoots from that position. So neither one thing nor the other, but wherever he's playing, he's capable of generating something.
Yeah.
So whether he starts on the right or the centre or possibly the left, he's great at all of them.
You prefer him starting from the centre, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but if you do that, you can't have Chaplin. So I'm drawn. Probably yes, probably. But again, it's one of these things where McKenna's going to do problem solving. He's going to look at the opposition and change according to that. So we have options. And again, he wants 2 people in every position, 2 specialists in every position. So there's going to be at least 2 options on the right, 2 options in the centre, 2 options on the left as well. So that can change during the game as well. So not to bow down to the cult of McKenna, but it's almost like the language that we use in terms of positions doesn't always apply, because he's always one step ahead.
And what about Broadhead? He's 5 million as an asset and still got 13 and 3 last year. So is he an option at all?
Well, he's injured now. We learned yesterday he's out for a couple of months with a hamstring injury. So he's good. His quality is from the Everton Academy. We got him. I mean, he was a joint top scorer. So, well done him. What I would say is he's patchy. He's a confidence player, I think. He's got great feet. And he can, in what will lend itself really well to the Premier League is that he can move his feet very quickly, he can get out of situations very quickly. So that could lend itself well, but he does go on these streaks where he's just not looking like he's contributing, which in a McKenna team is a no-no. So we are actively looking for, I mean, even before we knew he was injured, we're actively looking for competition on that left midfield, attacking midfield spot as well. We almost got Jaden Philogene from Hull. He went to Aston
Who looks
Villa.
insane.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that would have been fantastic, and we got robbed on that one. But we are looking at a number of options as well. So he could be an option. He's injured for a couple of months anyway. He does tend to get a few of these little injuries as well every now and again. But even though he was top scorer, even if he was fit, I wouldn't be wholeheartedly recommending him quite yet.
All right, cool. I think that sums up the attack. One thing that comes to my mind is stylistically, there's a lot of similarities to Klopp's Liverpool in terms of chaos, not exactly control, but causing problems to the opposition, high press, running throughout, etc. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of Klopp, there's plenty of Arteta and Guardiola as well, and De Zerbi as well. I mean, Klopp, they always say, is like a moments manager. It's about generating those moments. Less so with us.
Yeah.
But the sheer hysterical intensity of the end of matches does remind me of the Gegenpress, and that's heavy metal football.
All right, let's talk about the defense. You guys were third when it comes to goals conceded. Had the most number of clean sheets. Second when it comes to shots per game conceded, and fifth for XGC. I mean, everybody's interested in this for two reasons. A lot of people are interested in Leif Davis as a 4.5 million asset. So how many clean sheets are you expecting, for example, from a team like Ipswich? And we've got Liverpool and City up front. What can we expect in those games?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a large unknown. I'm not going to be as effusive about the defense as I am on the attack, because we conceded a lot of goals. If you look at the number of goals conceded compared to, say, Leicester, there's a big difference there. One of the reasons is because we just basically at home played we're just going to score more goals than you football.
Yeah.
And it was insane.
Yeah, I just realized, by the way, those stats that I was citing were away stats. Total, you all were seventh for goals conceded.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Seventh for goals conceded.
So away, we controlled games more. When I say control, actually, I think it was only 52% possession. So it wasn't possession, but we were a lot more conservative when we played away.
Yeah.
Exactly, pragmatic. I mean, hardly Big Sam pragmatic, but we were more pragmatic. Yeah. Literally, the Portman Road matches were just insane. And, you used to watch, Sky scores come in and they were just saying, thank you so much for sending me to Ipswich, because every week it's just a crazy match. I think it was an average of 4 games per game or something like that. We would often concede in the first 20 minutes and then score another 3, and they might get another one back. It was just fantastic to watch. And I think McKenna just thought, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The crowds are coming in. It's working at home, so let's just do that. I'm not naive to think that McKenna's not going to be now looking at this going, well, we can't play like this. That's just crazy in terms of the Premier League. And actually yesterday, and again, McKenna's great because he tells you how we're going to play before the season starts. He basically says that he's picked all of the pre-season matches, that they're good opposition. And we played Schalke, for instance. And these are all good teams who are fitter than us because their seasons are about to start, who play possession football, essentially. And play like a Premier League team. And we're getting used to that. And what we're trying to do is defend more compactly. So we're doing a lot of drills in terms of being much more compact. We're not going to play compact every minute of every game, but there are going to be periods where we have to do that. And there's going to be periods where we have to attack as well. So I think it will be more conservative. But I also think if you take away what makes that Ipswich side magic, which is just that relentless attack, then what have you got? So he's going to find that balance. And he may not get it right, first of all. But what you do see with him is always tweaking. If it doesn't quite work, you're thinking, oh, no, maybe we've been found out. The next match, we haven't been found out. He's tweaked it. And continually, we're going to be improving as well. And we've brought quality into the defence as well. So we've got a new goalkeeper. We brought Ben Johnson in from West Ham. We brought Jacob Greaves in from Hull, who very highly regarded. He's a left-footed, left-sided centre-back. Progressive, very passing, good aerial threat as well. Tip for an England place at some point as well. So, we've been bringing more should we say, quality into that defence. It'll be interesting to see exactly how much we curb in order to do that, because obviously we need to keep Leif Davis doing his thing as well.
It's a firecracker of a game up front. First game against Liverpool at home. Like Zoff keeps telling me he thinks Ipswich are going to give Liverpool some problems, and it's
absolutely.
I won't be surprised to see a crazy 3-3-3-4 either way at the start of the season. In fact, for listeners that don't know, when I was drafting after my first draft, I found myself thinking I probably should start with Haaland, and I sent Ivan a text and I was asking him, "What do you think? Do I need Haaland Ipswich at home game week? Do you reckon there's brace hat-trick potential?" And Ivan gave it to me straight. He's like, we'll score more than you kind of team. So yeah, I'd consider having Haaland. And that sort of also came into my mind. Is so you reckon there's potential for Salah and Haaland game week 1 and 2 as well?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I think we're going to. I'll probably look very foolish at the end of, in a few weeks' time. I think we're really going to give Liverpool a game. First game, Portman Road. Their new manager, new system, players coming back from the cup. You couldn't pick a better time to play them.
Yeah.
And to another degree, Manchester City as well, in terms of they probably wouldn't have gelled yet, etc. I think we'll really give Liverpool a game. I would not be surprised if we get something from that game. But again, we could get punished. Who knows? Manchester City, I think they'll do us. And if you look at our performances last year in the Championship, I mean, Leeds did us twice essentially, and they scored 4-3 the first match, and I think 3 of those goals were in 9 minutes, and then 4-0, which is just everything went wrong for us. So we have that in our locker against the best sides.
I'm thinking Leeds when they came to the league under Bielsa, like similar.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think we're going to be a bit like Bielsa, where we'll lose the odd game 5-0, but then we'll probably beat Everton 3-0 or Forest 2-0 or something like that, and we're going to get enough of those wins against the teams we need to be winning against that we're going to be okay. That's the dream anyway. Whilst also there will be Haaland hat-tricks, etc. as well.
So clearly we have more confidence in your attack than in your defense as FPL picks purely.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 seasons we've been the top scorers in those divisions both times. Have you got the league table from the Championship?
I don't have that.
Okay, no problem at all.
I'll pull it up in the meantime. You can talk.
Okay, cool. But so we finished on, I think it was 93 goals last season. So I think it was 4 ahead of Leicester, who obviously, at one point were basically crowned as the best team the Championship's ever seen. What we need to bear in mind is that, and this is especially pertinent when teams were calling us lucky, we had 3 penalties all season. Leicester had 13. So in terms of non-penalties, we scored 16 goals more than Leicester, who were crowned as basically the best team in the Championship that's ever been. So we are more than capable of scoring goals from all kinds of positions. I think there was maybe only one outfield player who played more than 5 games who didn't score. So there's no reason why we shouldn't score plenty of goals. I know it's the Premier League. We're not going to score to that same level, but I'm confident, it's going to be a fun ride and there are going to be goals.
There, I managed to pull the table in front of us. Yeah.
Oh yeah, lovely stuff there. So we scored 92 goals, of which 3 were penalties. They scored 89, of which 13 were penalties.
Wow. Yeah,
so that's quite the difference. Southampton, I think, got 6. I don't know what Leeds got, but either way, we are goal scorers with some very, very good clinical finishes as well. And you look at who we're buying in terms of the transfer market. It's not. I mentioned the defenders. We've brought Liam Delap. We've obviously brought Amari in. A lot of the talk is about attacking midfielders as well. So we're certainly not just going, well, we just need to buy some defence now. We are buying quality throughout and a lot of really attacking players as well, which is great.
All right. We've spoken about your defensive numbers, but let's talk about an attacker that happens to be a 4.5 million defender from Ipswich. Why don't you tell everybody else about Leif Davis?
Yeah, I mean, Leif Davis is spectacular. So we bought him so beginning of the League One season, and he from Leeds. And again, we mentioned Bielsa before. He was a youngster under Bielsa, and Bielsa really liked him. There's a Leeds meme where he was heard shouting, "That Davis good?" People used to say that all the time. And he was seen as like, yeah, this guy's going to break into the Bielsa team at some point. For nothing else, he's an insanely fit runner. And as you know, Murderball, you need to be an insanely fit runner, and he is. He's carried that through to us. And then Marsh came in. Jesse Marsh wasn't getting a look in. We chipped in, and actually we offered 1.2 million, which at the time was a huge amount of money for us, huge amount of money, and we got him. And he's just been ridiculous. I mean, I think he got 14 assists in League One. And I'm using that tone like it wasn't that, that's still an amazing number. But in Championship, he scored 2. He got 18 assists. I think he got 21 assists across all competitions, 2 own goals as well, so he can't stop scoring. But he is just insane in terms of his heat map, where he gets to. He's on corners. There you go. Look at that. I mean, what more could you want really from a 4.5 midfielder? And are people saying, "Oh, he's the next Alfie Doherty"? We'll have him at some point. But yeah, but I think Alfie Doherty got 5 or 6 assists the season before. He got 18 assists. The record for number of assists in the Championship by a defender in the Championship was 14, and that was Kieran Trippier. And Barry Douglas as well. Do you remember Barry Douglas? We all thought he was going to be amazing. Then he got sold before the FPL season started. But that was 14. Leif equaled that with 10 games of the season to go, and then just kept on going. So it's just an insane number of assists. And I won't say that. I mean, he obviously is one of our main creative threats. It's not like he's our only one. It's not like, well, he's going to get marked, we're not going to be able to produce. But so much of his output comes from rampaging up and basically joining the front, the 4 to make a 5.
I have a question for you, Ivan. So Davis, the opposition quality is a factor, and I want to understand what Davis did against tougher opposition, because you will have lesser control in the league, but
Absolutely,
you guys are not relying on control. That said, is Davis always going to be tasked with going up front, irrespective of the opposition? Like, what do you see happening against Liverpool or a City, for example?
It's a very difficult question. And I think it links into the personnel that can cover for his absence.
Yeah.
So, last season, you didn't see a huge amount of difference, which is probably why we got turned over by a couple of teams, essentially. You might see him being a little bit more conservative. So, maybe getting, he didn't really get to the byline, but, maybe getting 2/3 up the pitch and then doing a lovely cross and then on set pieces, etc. He can defend when he wants to, or when he's told to, more to the point. But I think what we've done currently by bringing Jacob Greaves in, he can play at left back, and he's a left-footed centre back. Burgess has been great, and he was actually our best defender last season. But if not from the start, at some point very soon, Jacob Greaves is going to be playing as the left centre back, so he'll essentially be fitting in to that position as well. And I think he can do a better job than Burgess at that, so that will help. We also have Massimo Luongo in midfield, who kind of covers for that left side as well when Leif's doing his run as well. I think we're looking for someone younger and more athletic there as well. So I think it very much depends on who we've got in those positions. I don't think he's going to have carte blanche to rampage. He's not going to get 18 assists. But there's enough threat there for sure that there's going to be plenty of threat, and especially corners, indirect free kicks, etc. as well. There's still plenty to like there.
Nice. I mean, just for people that are not watching on YouTube, his stats versus all other championship players. Note, I say all other championship players, not just defenders. He was first for assists in the championship period amongst everybody. He was first for chances created amongst everybody. He was first for accurate crosses amongst everybody. And he was 6th for expected assists amongst everybody. Like, that's sensational for a defender.
Absolutely. And if you look on FBref as well, which compares across all leagues, so obviously Championship is not as good a league as some of the other ones, but he is 99 percentile on XA. He's 97% on XG plus XA, 99 percentile in terms of a shot creation chances created. So some of that is going to translate for sure.
Is he in your Gameweek 1 team?
At the moment, he's on my bench. Absolutely. I'm not brave enough to play him against Liverpool and Manchester City. But
he's in your team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, some of that's a flex, of course.
Yeah.
But he, in the right set of circumstances, and I have a lot of faith. All Ipswich fans have a lot of faith in McKenna. He's not done anything wrong at all. And if we think, well, McKenna's going to do something, that's going to actually mean we're not going to concede as many goals as we did before. He's got a plan. he could be an incredible asset and make a mockery of 4.5 million.
I feel like after the first 2 weeks, I feel like if you all had Liverpool Game Week 4 instead of 1, for example, a lot of us would be thinking of including him in our Game Week 1 squad. I still am. Like, I currently have a Murillo and a Konsa rotation for the 2 4.5s. If I can find a defender that has got a decent Game Week 1 and 2, I am open to punting on Davis for the upside.
Absolutely.
Game Week 3, because I reckon there could be a point in the season if things work out for Ipswich where he's everybody's 4.5 million defender of choice.
Absolutely.
All right, lovely. That's I think that's all on Ipswich, and we can move to some of the other topics. Sure. Thing that I have in my mind is, what are your thoughts on Southampton? Let's talk about that, because there's been a fair amount of things going up and down at Leicester. Southampton do have decent fixtures at the start of the season as well. So how are they stylistically, and should we be looking at any... Before we move to Southampton, a lot of people might be interested in a 4.0 million Ipswich defender as well. Who should be the 4.0 million defender of choice? It's
a good question. There's plenty of them. It's one of two. So, I mean, Ben Johnson, I think, will be nailed at right back, or pretty much nailed. Obviously, he's one of the only Ipswich players who has any Premier League experience. I think we have 2 players who have more than like 5 games experience, and that's an issue. So Ben Johnson's got 70. Axel Tuanzebe, also at right back or right centre back, has about 30. But I think there's a reason why Ben Johnson moved to us rather than turn down a 5-year contract with West Ham, because he wants to play.
Yeah.
So I think he's a good way. He's not going to get forward as much as Leif Davis by any stretch of the imagination, but he should be pretty nailed. Jacob Greaves should be really good as well for a 4.0.
Who do you think is more nailed between the two?
I would think both of them probably are.
Okay.
But the only thing that sits with me is that how much is McKenna going to change all in one go? It's not inconceivable that he just plays the same team that finished the season for the first game of the season. But Jacob Greaves, very highly regarded, possibly in England international at some point. He's definitely going to have that place soon, in which case he is a real threat from corners. He is very good at passing. He does runs and dribbles. There's going to be a lot of bonus points if he can keep a clean sheet as well. So could be one to watch.
All right. Let's talk Southampton then. Okay. Is Adam Armstrong at 5.5 million a pick?
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably the only pick, or one of the few picks. But the number of goals and assists he scored, and he's not the player he was a few years ago. The confidence, the finishing, the speed in which he gets shots off now is incredible, and the accuracy as well. He scored a great goal against us. He is legit, and if you want a Pookie, there's your Pookie this year. I think from the promoted teams.
Is he on pens as well?
Yep.
Okay, so he's got everything nailed on pens, going to be safe for minutes, etc., and decent fixtures for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I would seriously consider him. So if that slot's available, obviously you're looking at your Munizes as well. But if you can only stretch to 5.5 in terms of the promoted teams, he's definitely the one. I mean, Southampton, they play a very strong, as do Leicester, a very strong control game. Well, they did last year. They had the very, very high control possession stats. And their defense wasn't great for large chunks of it. But I think a lot of that was down to Bazuna. He was really quite bad. He got an Achilles injury, and he was fantastic at it with his feet. So great for distribution and possession, etc. But I think his stats had him I think he conceded 10 goals more than he should have. So there were vast periods where the defense wasn't settled. Bazuna was playing, and they were not good at all. He got injured. McCarthy actually came in and did a really good job. Our friend Alex McCarthy.
Yes.
Plenty of saves. Did a good job. They got more clean sheets. So there's a 4 million. Harwood Bellis, who came from Manchester City. He scored a goal the other day. He's got an assist in. He's a good player, so he's an option as well. And that pretty much it, I would say, for Southampton. I mean, they do have obviously Walker Peters, although I suspect he might go to West Ham by the end of the transfer window. They do have a brilliantly named player called Japanese player called Sugawara, whose stats look great. He's just come from AZ Alkmaar for 6 million. He scored a golden assist in pre-season, and his stats, there's a lot of assist potential there. So I wouldn't be surprised if he takes over from Walker Peters, or they move Walker Peters to the left actually, and have two-pronged wing-back approach, because they had a 4 at the back for nearly all season, but in the playoffs against the tougher teams, they actually switched to 5 at the back. And I wouldn't be surprised if they start the season with 3 centre-backs and then maybe Sugawara and Walker-Peters pushing up at wing-back as well. So they could be interesting as well, so worth monitoring.
If you're picking a 4.0 million defender for the season, let's say if you're playing a draft game, between Leicester, Southampton and Ipswich, which way would you go just for defense?
And if I wasn't an Ipswich fan as well.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one because Southampton, their defensive stats weren't that good. Leicester, they were, but you're basically looking at, Voetface, or Vestergaard. They brought a new player in as well. Although I looked into him and all I could find out was that he's good at blocking shots. So I don't know whether it's an automatic purchase or not. None of them really strike me with any excitement. Probably Harwood Bellis, or even Jacob Greaves, if he looks established, with relatively low expectations for all of them. But all of them have, decent teams capable of keeping a clean sheet with the right fixture and might get an attacking return or a bonus.
Is Leicester the strongest squad on paper out of the 3 coming up?
Well, yes and no. I mean, certainly in the Championship, their squad was ridiculous. And the fact that we finished 1 point behind them is ridiculous because that was a Premier League squad. I mean, yes, they had lost Harvey Barnes and the like, but you look at them and you've obviously got Jamie Vardy, you've got Patson Daka, you had Iheanacho, you had Dewsbury Hall, and then you had Mabadidi and Fatawar on the wings who were really good. Your favourite Ricardo Pereira is still there. So that is a really, that's a competitive Premier League side.
James Justin is in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, obviously they've lost Kieran Dewsbury Hall. They've lost their manager. So, that's Kieran Dewsbury Hall. We all think of him Premier FPL terms as, is this defensive midfielder who popped up every now and again and actually got a few goal contributions. He was basically their engine room and creator and scorer. I don't know how many goal contributions, but it was a lot.
26.
Essentially. 26 goal contributions.
Yeah.
So they're missing that. I mean, even Ndidi was given license to do that as well. He got not as many. But, again, Ndidi would maybe get 1 or 2 per season if you're lucky. He was getting a few as well. But they've lost Dewsbury Hall. Iheanacho's left. And the elephant in the room...
Where is Iheanacho now?
He's not. So he's out of contract. He might be going to Seville. But there's a few teams sniffing around him. It's not in this country.
I hope it's a Premier League club. We all love Iheanacho.
We all love him. Absolutely. But yeah, he's going as well. And obviously we've got Vardy, but who was their top scorer, got 18 goals last season. But didn't start every match. His minutes were managed in the Championship, so they're going to be even more managed now. He can still do it when he's on the pitch, but there's a big question mark there. So, are they the strongest squad? I think it's pretty even, to be honest. We're buying quality. Southampton have done very well in terms of bringing in so Flynn Downs, who was on loan with them, and this next Ipswich player did really, really well. They've basically made sure that their key loanees they bought, and the same that we did with Amari Hutchinson as well. So they're pretty well established as well. So Leicester have got the quality, but they've lost a key player. They've got Cooper now. That's going to link into the manager's conversation at the end, I guess.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of unknown there. Plus the fact that they basically they are infringing or were infringing on financial fair play. And there was talk about them getting points deducted in the Championship. Legally, they couldn't do it because the discretion, they've called it that, was actually done in the Premier League. So there's a very good chance they're going to get point deduction this year. So they could even start the season at -10 or something like that as well, which obviously influences the impact of buying new players, attracting new talent, etc. as well. So I wouldn't be massively confident if I was a Leicester fan currently.
Who do you think is the likeliest to go down?
I mean, Leicester, if you take into the points deduction, definitely. But if they weren't get any points deducted, I don't know. I think the quality of those who have come up, and that includes Ipswich, is so much better than your Burnley, your Lutons, and your Sheffield Uniteds in many ways.
I agree.
I think I mean, everyone's going, well, look, the 3 teams who came up went down. That's the way it is now. Really? The season before, all 3 stayed up.
Yeah.
That's just recency bias. And I think all 3 of those teams made errors. So Sheffield United sold their 4 best players
Yeah.
before the start of the season, never replaced them. So what do you expect?
Yeah.
Luton did we're going to spend 20, 30 million on players who will do us good in the Championship when we get relegated. And they did a really good job on that, to be honest. And Burnley, they lost Nathan Teller, who was their top scorer because he was on loan. They didn't replace him. And Luton didn't replace their loan players as well, by the way. And then Burnley just went, we're going to buy 19 players and just play with a new team as well. So
Yeah.
I think all 3 of those teams are in a better position than those 3 were.
Yeah.
So it's going to be competitive.
Yeah, I do worry for Leicester because of the Dewsbury Hall and the Maresca effect. Now let's talk about Maresca, because a lot of Chelsea fans are interested in terms of what can we just expect from him. And the one thing that stood out is he started off incredibly well, and then there was a phase where they lost 6 from 10. So what happened there? What's Maresca like? What should Chelsea fans and us Premier League fans expect?
Very interesting case in point, really. I mean, obviously, the good stuff is he's a disciple of Pep. And that's one of the reasons why he's walked into a job like Chelsea. Oh, he's worked with Pep. He's the new manager, as it were, the new fancy manager. We'll have him. So he plays very controlled football. But what's really interesting is that when he did go, the noise from the Leicester fans was kind of a bit of a shrug. It was kind of like, oh well, okay, off you pop. But there's a lot of criticism in terms of he only had plan A, that he was too conservative. It was score a goal and then shut up shop quite often. Maybe it was compared to us, as it were, but I think they did suffer for comparisons there. The team didn't seem massively fit as well for a team who played possession football. They would quite often, in the matches I watched at least, really tail off after about 70 minutes. And certainly Ipswich got last minute equalisers because of that. We were all over them for the last 20 minutes because they had nothing left. I don't know if that's a fair thing. Leicester fans may say, no, that's just a small sample size. But certainly the Leicester fans were like, well, plan A, conservative, he did us a good job. But at the end of the day, how could anyone not get us promoted with that team? And they only got promoted 1 team ahead of Ipswich. And as you say, I mean, at one point they were so far ahead, it was crazy. And I think some of that's variance. I mean, they're performing very, very well. They deserve to be up there. But the period that they went through, they didn't look like the same team. They looked demoralized, they looked tired. But statistically, actually, nothing really changed. And a lot of that is down to variance. Patson Daka missed a number of absolute sitters that would have really, given them points or wins, and it would have been a different story as well. So I think there may be quite a lot of variance going on there. But as I say, with a team of that quality, how could you not get promoted? So the fact, 97 points, fantastic, but that's probably what you would have expected.
So from what I hear, when it comes to Chelsea, they could take a while to get going. Play with caution. And when it comes to Leicester, again, we're not sure. They could, you like Spurs' fixture game week 1 against them, and you like Aston Villa's fixture game week 3 against them as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, in terms of him, he may do better with better players for a start. When I say better, he's had 1 season finished top, so let's not be too hard on him.
Yeah.
But it will be interesting to see, and certainly, if it does work for him, midfield and the wingers are where you want to be looking, essentially, because we've mentioned, Kieran Dewsbury Hall stats, Mavadidi, on the left, and Fatawa on the right as well. Really good, real quality. Leicester, that was, but got lots of goals, lots of assists. So you can imagine Madueke, for instance, doing really, really well for Chelsea. You can imagine whoever's sort of playing.
Chelsea will be defensively better too under Maresca? Because the main difference that I hear is that, one of the problems that the Chelsea management have with Poch is he was very demanding of the players. And Maresca is more system driven, where he doesn't ask as much physically of the players that Poch did. So I do wonder if their injury issues get solved, defensively they could be a little more stable.
Quite possibly, yeah. I mean, if you look at the amount of energy that they expended, I don't think they're going to be necessarily running until they all break down. So it's all conjecture at the end of the day. What we do know is he's got a great pedigree in terms of where he's learnt his trade. He's had 1 season, he finished top with the best defence. And let's see how that translates into a team like Chelsea, who we know are dysfunctional. Let's just see how much function he can bring to that.
Lovely. All right, that is lovely. I'll ask you one question, personal question. Where are you at? Salah, Haaland, both?
I'm at don't bother tinkering too much until we get closer, but I am Haaland, no Salah.
That's a nice start.
And I'm also, if there is such a template, I'm also kind of, the lack of Salah enables me to have people like Odegaard. You don't see in too many teams, etc. Yeah, not too detailed so far. I've kind of got a few vibey ideas and where I could go, but I'm looking at pre-season for Liverpool because I think Jota, Gakpo, they could be the ones. Especially with those 2 9s we're seeing in pre-season.
You should watch out. In the last week before FPL kicks off, we've got Josh Williams from Anfield Rap coming on. So we've left the Liverpool chat till really late because I think it's a team of interest and we want some more preseason info. So watch for that.
I'm sure McKenna will be watching that as well.
Yeah. So yeah, this is lovely. It's been fabulous. I am actually thinking about Hutchinson or Davis, one of them in my draft, because I don't think it's a bad idea if you get somebody to play Soul for the first 2 game weeks. Could be interesting. It's been lovely chatting with you. I'm presuming Likewise. This probably won't be the first time you're coming on this season, especially with Ipswich involved. For people that want to find Ivan, you can find them on Twitter at Reuser5. That's at the rate REUSER5. Any last words, Ivan?
No, just thank you for having me. And to talk about Ipswich for for a little while is, with you is just a dream come true. So thank you.
Lovely. I'll catch you tomorrow when we're discussing FPL in our chat anyway.
Good stuff. Take care.
Have a good evening.